Welcome back to my channel, where creepy things happen. And today we're going to start with the first story. So I was 20 years old and working at a dentist's office as a dental assistant. And one of our patients was a 78-year-old woman. She had severe anxiety and hadn't been to the dentist in over 20 years. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, so we took the x-rays, did the extraction, and scheduled her for a few weeks later. The only reason she finally came to us was because her family convinced her to come in, or she would have never made an appointment. When she came into the office, she needed quite a few extractions. I figured that maybe the writing was from some sort of medicine that she was taking, so I didn't think much of it until a few days later when she came back in. Pathology? What does that mean? I asked. He just said, sometimes teeth have to go to pathology. I ran into the room to find the office manager holding the envelope with the teeth in it. She was pale as a ghost. I could see that the message had reappeared on the teeth. Hi, Ope. This happened in late 2004 or early 2005 in Michigan. USA, my sister and I were visiting family in Michigan. One evening we were staying at my grandparents' house who lived near a large lake. We decided to take a walk around the lake, which was very popular and well-traveled, especially at night. We couldn't make out the words, but the voice was definitely angry and upset. It was nearly 3 a.m. by the time we got home, and we were very glad that we had made that decision. And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also hit that subscribe button because I put out new videos every single day. We could see the man who had been speaking in tongues running frantically across the dock, yelling and making wild hand movements. The voice continued to boom across the water, and we could see the man fall to his knees and bow his head as if in submission. Then the music started back up and the voice was no longer heard. It said, "Eileen will pay." I had no idea who Eileen was. We decided to check it out, and when we got closer, we could hear a man speaking. There was something about the way that he spoke that drew us in, and we stood listening for a few minutes. He was speaking in tongues and occasionally shouted and screamed. We turned to leave when we noticed the face of the man speaking was not right. I use this term lightly. His face was misshapen, and it looked like his nose and lower jaw were slightly askew. He continued speaking in tongues, and then stopped to glare at us, as if he was daring us to stay and listen some more. And when I asked, the office manager whispered, "It's the girl who cleans the instruments." The crowd had grown larger, and the man was gesturing wildly with his arms. We kept walking and noticed a path leading down to the water's edge. We decided to walk down this path and see where it led. At the bottom of the hill was a set of stairs leading up to a dock. On the other side of the lake, we could see that there were lights out and music playing. We could also see people dancing and drinking on the other side of the dock. She hasn't been in yet this week. My eyes widened in horror as I thought, oh my God, she's dead. We all started freaking out, thinking that this person had killed our coworker. And then the office manager opened the envelope to take out the teeth so that we could put them in the autoclave. And when we saw that they were actually the teeth that we had sent to pathology, they were fake teeth. The message on them simply read, "Eileen will pay," as if the real teeth were being taken somewhere else. All of us, including the patient, were silent for a moment before she asked, "What do you mean?" He responded, "Well, sometimes teeth have growths on them that need to be examined further. You know, just in case." She nodded slowly and then asked what he was going to tell her family. He said that he was just going to tell them that he removed the rest of her teeth. "They won't be asking any further questions," he said with a smile. "No one ever asks about pathology reports unless they're the ones who are examining them." She agreed, and then left. I was sitting in the front office when she came in, and she seemed very down. The office manager and I helped her back into the chair, and the dentist came and did the procedure. I remember the look on his face being priceless, though, because I don't think he really knew what to do. During the procedure, he kept stopping and staring at her mouth before continuing. Apparently, the message changed each time he looked at it. Couldn't see the message this time, but I remember him saying, "What the hell?" a few times. We were only doing 2 or 3 teeth per visit, though, because of how anxious she was. Now, during the first visit, nothing really happened other than she broke a tooth while eating breakfast that morning, and it needed to be extracted. Now, the next time she came in, everything was fine. But during the 3rd visit is when things got weird. She came in and sat down, and then the dentist started doing the procedure like normal. This time, though, I leaned closer to try to see if I could figure out what was wrong. And as I was looking, I saw something that I will never forget. I looked inside her mouth, and all I could see was what looked like writing carved into her teeth. So I was leaning there trying to read what was carved into her mouth. The dentist finally got a good look at it too, and he stopped the procedure. He called the office manager and they talked for a moment before the dentist came back and told the lady that he could unfinish the procedure and that she would have to come back another day. I remember her asking him why, and him responding with something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, but I can't work with this right now." That S when she started freaking out again and screaming about how she was being punished for her sins or some nonsense like that. The office manager came and got her and walked her out, talking soothingly to her the entire time. He numbed her mouth and started doing whatever he needed to do. I was sitting right by her head and just to the side of the dentist so I could see what was happening. Then suddenly she screamed at the top of her lungs and swatted at her mouth, as if something was stuck in it. I looked up at the dentist and he looked back at me with the same confused expression. Obviously, this patient was screaming and thrashing around and we couldn't do anything with her like that, so we let her calm down a little bit before we tried again. Now, after about 10 minutes, she calmed down and asked us to try again, so the dentist went ahead and tried to continue the procedure. After she left, the office manager and dentist talked for a bit before deciding that we would go ahead and cancel her next appointment and give her a call to come in as soon as possible to remove the rest of the teeth. When he finally finished removing all of her teeth, he explained that she had no more cavities and that he was going to send off the teeth that he removed to pathology. A week later, I was stocking instruments in the back room when I heard the office manager yell, "Get over here right now," said the dentist. And that is the end of that story. So I think I know the author of this next story. We were walking along and noticed a small crowd gathered around a gazebo on the south side of the lake. We decided to keep walking, and as we did, we turned to look back at the man in the crowd. As we stood there debating whether or not we should go over to the dock party, we heard a loud voice boom across the water. We stood there for a few seconds debating whether or not we should investigate further, and then decided to head home. Okay, that was horror. I found a message carved into my teeth.